Congratulations on getting through Run and Bun's incredibly tedious early game. Thankfully for you, after Norman is where the game really picks up. We're gonna go over everything from the Winstrate's gauntlet all the way through the 5th gym leader, Flannery. First and foremost, Winstrates. The Winstrates are a 4-trainer gauntlet where you can only bring 6 Pokemon without being healed in between any of them. The star of the show is this Mega Medicham, and it's quite the problematic Pokemon. When it comes to stuff like this, I personally like planning from back to front. For starters, the Medicham can be pretty tough to counter. Stuff like Talonflame and Hatterene with good enough IVs can be solid counters, but alternatively you can use mons like Caracosta or Obstagoon to protect on the incoming high jump kick to get some free chip damage. Keep in mind that if you want to intimidate the Medicham, you need to do so after it Mega Evolves. The base Medicham has Inner Focus, which ignores Intimidate, and me and many others have had to learn that the hard way since it isn't in the docs. Also, be careful of the Crocodile, since if your Medicham answer is too low on HP, you may be in danger of dying to Pursuit. Winstrate VV leads a Rabombi with Focus Sash, and due to its Shield Dust ability, stuff like Fake Out to break it won't work. Togedemaru or a Fire type does just fine. Just make sure to equip a Cherry Berry for the Stun Spore. A lot of Water type Pokemon that have an Ice type move like Octillery or Clawitzer can chain a KO on Flygon into Sudowoodo, and with gauntlets like this, being able to use one Mon for multiple jobs is a lifesaver. For the Winstrates in general, it's important to be able to conserve HP on Mons that you need later in the gauntlet. I like leading my Medicham answer for all 4 fights and pivoting accordingly, depending on what moves are coming in. After Winstrates, you get access to another encounter in Route 111. Technically speaking, you can get this encounter before Watson even, but more often than not, you really want to delay until you can get the Desert encounter. This encounter table is great, potentially netting you stuff like Excadrill or Crocodile. Both are solid, decently fast, hard-hitting ground types that perform for the entire game. Some of these encounters are dupes that we've been over in previous videos, so if you haven't watched the rest of the series, be sure to check it out. As far as new encounters go, Maractus is really interesting. It gets access to Spiky Shield, which is an amazing tool. Other than that, Chlorophyll is a solid niche ability in Sun, and Maractus has decently respectable offensive stats. Also, be careful if you encounter a Boldore, as it can explode. Be sure to save Quick Balls if you can. Rather than going over each and every trainer in this split, since there are a lot of them, we're going to go by sections and cover the most problematic or difficult trainers. Starting with the Route 111 Desert itself, which has permanent sand. Some of these trainers are pretty tough, notably the Bright Powder and Sandvale guys. For starters though, Camper Travis Piloswine is kind of a demon. Stuff like Walrein Encore can be good to use on the Curse or Icicle Spear here, but just be careful to not let it get out of hand by setting up too many curses. Double battles can always be a little troublesome. With Brian and Celia, things like Vivian or Crawdaunt that can bait a guaranteed KO from the Maractus are fantastic to pivot between while a ground type attacks the other side. The first really tough trainer in the desert is Camper Brandon. The Skarmory has a red card with Sturdy, so it's pretty much impossible to KO it. If you don't know what red card does, it randomly switches your Mon out for another Mon in your party upon making contact with the holder. This means that the bird has a nearly guaranteed turn to set up hazards. Donphan is really good for this, but you can also use an electric type to break the Sturdy and follow up with a switch to a Rapid Spin user. With Torterra, it's not a super big threat, but it can get out of hand if you let it set up a Leech Seed. Anything like Masquerain, Vivian, or Talonflame should be fine here, especially in Talonflame's case with Roost. Rhyperior and Beware are threats in their own right. Remember that Beware's ability Fluffy makes it really susceptible to Fire-type moves, especially special ones like Infernape's Overheat. Rhyperior should be checked by any special attacking Water type, but keep in mind Sandstorm increases its special defense. This fight really revolves around making sure hazards aren't set up. Be sure to focus on dealing with the Skarmory before you plan the rest of the team. After Brandon, you get access to 1 or maybe 2 encounters, depending on whether or not you took your Rustboro encounter. Mirage Tower is kind of like Granite Cave in the sense where there's a lot of variety. A lot of the time, you want to prioritize trying to get Excadrill here if you didn't on 111, since it's an amazing encounter and rapid spinner. Claydol is kind of like a poor man's version of Excadrill sometimes, but it has some really unique tech with skill swap that sets it apart. Scorupi is great, since Drapion's amazing typing is really useful for the entire rest of the split. A guaranteed Battle Armor Mon and Dark type is always fantastic. I don't think Solosis or Duosion are very good at all. A slow Psychic type doesn't immediately stand out, but I'm sure it has some niche uses. Mawile is interesting. It has almost no physical power until you get the Mega Stone way later in the game, but Intimidate plus its awesome typing makes it relatively useful regardless. Although I haven't used Sigilif myself, I've seen some other runners like Jackie Internet and General Bubbles use it throughout the game, and it seems honestly pretty great. Psycho Shift is a really unique tool to have, on top of dual screens, Psycho Boost, and Tailwind. Pre-burn Psycho Shift is a really cool strategy to deal with Vito's eventual Mega Aggron. Zubat and Golbat are the classic nuzlocke Pokemon, and they're honestly fantastic when you get them this early. There isn't a ton to say about them that isn't obvious, but it's important to note that these are great dupes for potentially scoring a Dreepy later in the game. S-Cavalier is great, as Steel types always are. It's 50-50 to have Battle Armor for an ability, but it's a great Mon regardless and is a solid addition to any box. Excelgor, on the other hand, I was really optimistic about this guy since his speed is obviously fantastic, but I have him in my current run, which is currently in Juan's gym, by the way. Consider checking it out on Twitch. Anyway, he's absolutely terrible. I found very few uses for him, but the one thing I can say about this guy is that he's a Final Gambit bot. Noivern is fantastic. It's a solid, fast, special attacking dragon type that holds up throughout the whole game, and it's even gone to the Elite Four. I haven't gotten the opportunity to use Zoroark, and I don't think Illusion messes with the AI at all. It's one of 2 Pokemon that gets access to Taunt though, so it definitely has some niche use. Absol is another really cool mon that gets even better once you get the Mega Stone. Magic Bounce is incredibly broken, and it's gone to the E4 multiple times. Now for the fun part. Fossils. At the top of Mirage Tower lies the weird fossil, which can be turned into one of any random fossil Pokemon except for the Galar fossils. Depending on your box, this could either be fantastic or terrible. Starting with the shitters, Granidos and Lileep are kinda terrible. I've used both multiple times, and it seems like I was going out of my way to try and use them while simultaneously finding almost 0 opportunities to use them. Aurorus is really cool. Its typing is really interesting, and it can somewhat wall certain mons. Archeops and Aerodactyl are both really solid, but can be kind of IV dependent. A fast rock and flying type mon on the Fire Gym Leader's split is obviously going to be fantastic. Tyrantrum is very IV dependent in my opinion, but its typing makes it really interesting. I think it can be a decent Flannery sweeper since it isn't threatened too hard by either lead, but we'll get there when we get there. Kabutops and Amistar are both great, with Amistar probably being the superior of the 2. I haven't used it myself, but from what I heard, Amistar is amazing. Incredible special attack with access to Protect and its typing makes it a much better version of Caracosta, which is pretty much just a Protect bot. Kabutops, on the other hand, gets Rapid Spin as opposed to Protect, which makes it really interesting in its own right. Both of the water-type Kanto fossils have a 50-50 ability split in Shell Armor and Swift Swim, but both are great abilities. Armaldo's another Protect guy that gets access to Rapid Spin, and his typing's pretty unique. I haven't gotten to use this guy on Flannery Split, but he's kind of underwhelming if you get him later in the game. Now for my absolute favorite, Bastiodon. This guy might seem really weak on paper, but trust me, he's incredible. This thing gets access to Screech, Metal Burst, and Rock Tomb, which makes it the perfect utility Pokemon. I'm so serious when I say the amount I've been able to switch in Bastiodon, get a free -2 defense, special defense, or -1 speed on a threatening Pokemon is unreal. I've used this guy with Sturdy, Papa Berry as well, and while it doesn't do a lot of damage, it really holds up as a defensive utility wall. He walls a lot of threatening Pokemon, and he's such a cutie, like look at him. Don't let anybody slander Bastiodon, give him a chance, he's honestly fantastic. Keep in mind that if you already had a Pokemon like Aurorus or Caracosta from earlier in the game, and you end up reviving one of them as your fossil, you can pick up all of the individual fossils in Desert Underpass, which allows you to choose your encounter. Now that we've gone through all those exciting new Pokemon, Collector John is the next real threat in this wasteland. If you pick Turtwig as your starter, it's smooth sailing. This beast can take care of Copperajah, Lycanroc, and Sandslash. Just be careful of Endeavor on the dog. You really want to have high HP to deal with all 3. Alternatively, Claydol and Donphan are fantastic for the Lycanroc. Keep in mind, the Delphox is holding a Sticky Barb, which is actually a really useful item to have. If you don't know, any mon holding a Sticky Barb takes 1/8 damage every turn, but contacting another mon that doesn't have an item while holding it transfers the barb to that Pokemon. Stuff like Dreadnought and Caracosta can handle this fox no problem, but it's important to try and grab the barb as it's really useful for some terrifying fights later in the game, including Winona. Mandibuzz isn't too threatening, any steel type beats it no problem. Just make sure you aren't holding an item, and if you are, make sure it's a Pecha Berry. Also, this isn't super important, but I found out because of this thing's Rocky Helmet that Avalanche is a contact move. Like what? The next 2 trainers, Camper Bo and Ninja Boy Jinra, are pretty tricky. The former, Bo, is super easy with the slight exception of this Palisand. This thing isn't a real threat honestly, but its Sand Veil and Bright Powder combo is pretty scary on paper. I don't think I've mentioned this yet in the series, but after getting access to Cut, you can cut the trees in Petalburg Woods to get access to the Miracle Seed, Silver Powder, and most importantly here, the TM for Magical Leaf. Magical Leaf ignores evasion boosts like Sand Veil and Bright Powder, so any grass type should make this Sandcastle a non-factor. Same goes for Jinra's Golem, but the same can't be said about this Cacturn. Obviously, Magical Leaf isn't going to do a ton to the Cactus, and the Aerial Ace TM located right above the Winstrate's house is great, but won't do enough damage to Oko. This Cacturn is one of the single biggest threats in the entire desert. It hits like a truck, and Substitute can also be a major problem. One strategy that I find works pretty well is to bait Focus Punch into something that learns Aerial Ace, since you can consistently ignore Focus Punch since hitting the user makes it useless. Otherwise, stuff like Centiskorch, Talonflame, Vivillon, Masquerain, and any bug type really is your friend, especially with Wide Lens. In my opinion, the single hardest trainer in the desert is Ruin Maniac Rigger. This team is demonic and has wiped my fair share of runs. The first thing worth mentioning here is the bug with Brick Break, Ghost types, and Screens. For whatever reason, even though Brick Break doesn't affect Ghost types, using Brick Break on a Ghost type still breaks the screens. You can use this to your advantage by dropping the Pulse speed and having the upper hand to take it out while not having to worry about light screen or reflect. Be really careful of this Crocodile. Weakness Policy and Bulk Up make Power Trip start to do some real damage. Since I'm personally a turtle runner, I always end up clicking EQ on this thing until it dies. And since you can always see a KO on it with Seed Bomb, it'll never click Bulk Up. This sets up perfectly for Cloyster to always see a guaranteed KO with Frost Breath, meaning it will never click Shell Smash. Alternatively, you can use some fellas like Lucario or Clawitzer to deal with this Shellfish. The bottom line is just not allowing it to click Shell Smash. It's really not a huge threat without it. Lastly, don't sleep on this Shelgon. Dragon Dance makes it a big threat, and it's really tough to OHKO it through Eviolite. I really like Walrein here, and any Mon that can knock off its item is a great help as well. Hatterene and Gardevoir are obviously great here since they're two of the only fairy types available at this point. Also, don't forget to pick up this rare candy near the end of the desert. It's really helpful. If you thought you were safe after the brutality that is the Route 111 desert, then guess again. Cool Trainer Wilton and Cool Trainer Brook are two very difficult trainers that guard your Route 113 encounter. Wilton is tricky, since Arena Trap Dugtrio is always a problem. More often than not, you want to use a Fire type on any Scizor you see, but doing so invites Dugtrio in for free to pick up a guaranteed KO. The best way to deal with this recurring problem in Run and Bun is to bait Dugtrio in by KOing something with a flying type, like Masquerain or Talonflame. The best way to do this is by fighting the Scizor with something that baits in Tangrowth, then dealing with that with one of the former mentioned Mons. Also, this Noctowl is really annoying. Blunder Policy makes it so Noctowl gains +2 speed if it misses an attack, and both Hurricane and Hypnosis can obviously miss. Generally, you want to deal with this thing after Dugtrio's already dead, since most of the best answers to it invite in that guy for free. Remember in the Norman Split video when I mentioned Alolan Sandslash being great against a certain Hail trainer in Flannery Split? Welcome to Cool Trainer Brook and her Hail team. This fight is very, very difficult. Specifically the Beartic, since its coverage and speed make it a real monster. The best way to play around this guy is by getting rid of the White Herb and lowering its defense through his own superpowers. Alternatively, Sandslash with Slush Rush is a fantastic answer for this bear. Also, remember that Tentacruel has Clear Body. Myself and multiple others have tried to drop this guy's speed with Eldegoss, only for it to obviously not work. Magmortar's pretty straightforward, and Dugong can be annoying, but isn't a huge threat if you have a decent fighting type. It's also worth mentioning that finding a way to deal with or negate Toxic Spikes really helps for this fight, since dealing with Beartic usually involves a lot of pivots. Route 113 has a lot of cool new encounters. Murkrow's fine, although you can't get a Duskstone till after Veto and Fallarbor. This encounter can be a bit of a turnoff if you don't already have a counter to the Alakazam. Stunky's decent as well. Its typing is fantastic, and it's a potential Boomon later in the game. Coughing is really cool, since you can trade it for Galar Weezing and Fortree, which is an incredibly useful Pokemon. It's also really good to grab on 113, since it can't explode as opposed to Coughing on 112. 113 doesn't have a ton of difficult trainers. The standout is definitely the double battle against Tori and Tia. Depending on your box, this can be an actual run killer. Any double battle involving a Shadow Tag Gothitelle is problematic, and the lead of Intimidate Scrafty and Dazzling Bruxish doesn't make it any easier. Honestly, my best advice for this fight is to find a way to bait in Bisharp before Gothitelle, and set up a double kill on either Scrafty or Bruxish and Bisharp, leaving only Gothitelle in the back. It can be really difficult, and this fight often requires a long amount of preparing. Stuff like Drapion, Mightyena, and Crocodile can be great at chaining kills or baiting fakeouts from Gothitelle, if it does come out early. Another fight worth mentioning is Rich Boy Santos. It's not usually super difficult, but this Shiftry is a really good reason to want to delay Trapinch for first impression. Unless your box doesn't have a good fire resist, you'll probably be fine. Finally, you definitely want to fight Parasol Lady Madeline and Camper Lawrence as a double battle, since doing so gives you access to this inconveniently placed Shed Shell. This double battle isn't super difficult. I play it like I do with most other double battles up to this point. I recommend cleaning the side with the Raichu first though, since it's a lot easier to deal with in my opinion. Waiting for you in Fallarbor is your next boss fight, Winstrate Veto. This guy can be a little bit of a run killer if you aren't careful, and the Aggron is a massive problem without a good counter. Also, don't try to go into the Pokemart before fighting Veto, trust me. Okay, it does Charge Beam here. That's a really cool animation. Wait, why did I X-Scissor? That doesn't matter. This is less damage. Yeah, what's up, OTG? And then we go into Arcanine, which should always bait Crawdaunt. Perfect. Okay, so this is always Aqua Jet. We go Roserade. If one of these crits, I think there's a chance we end up baiting Breloom. But, like, that's fine because it never spores anyway. This is always Aqua Jet. Perfect. Okay, that is ideal. So now it's not going to bait Crobat. It's not going to bait Breloom. It's going to bait Swellow. And the good news, actually, is that this should never Heat Wave. It's most likely Brave Bird, which is best case. No, I mean, best case scenario, I guess, is Heat Wave, no burn, but it can't do that, I don't think. So Brave Bird is... Oh, okay. It saw the Boom Burst roll. Okay, we're chilling. If that crit, I was in trouble. Let me just see the damage. Okay, this always baits Breloom. The good part about this is that it is random move, so it might just click like Mach Punch or something. Either way, we always go Talon. Perfect. That is best case scenario. Now its Fighting Gem's gone. And this should bait... Okay. The one problem is that this baits Crobat. If this Crobat gets out of hand, we're kind of in trouble. Okay, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Okay. Where it's so free. That's a +2 Giga Drain. It's too free, man. Okay, this is Aggron. And this is random move, although it is less likely to Iron Head. This Aggron has no rock moves. Okay, cool. This is pretty likely to autotomize. I'm just gonna go for a Will-O-Wisp. Nice. GG. This can never kill us. Now we slowly but surely acrobatics this guy. I think if they gave this Head Smash instead of Body Press, it would maybe be harder, or maybe be easier to deal with. I'd like to see you try, Knack. That killed? Wow. After slaying the beast that is Veto in his Mega Aggron, you get 2 to 3 new encounters depending on your situation with the fossil. Fallarbor has a ton of solid guys, including what is likely to be your first Fairy type. Fairymons are incredibly useful in this game, as they are in any game. The typing alone really fills out any box. With that said, Clefairy kinda sucks, I can't lie. Its typing is great, but that's most of what it has going for it. Follow Me could be cool though, and Encore is always nice. Azumarill, on the other hand, is really solid. Water and Fairy is a great typing, and it really fills that role super well. You don't get access to huge power, but it's a solid mon nonetheless. Snubbull isn't great, but it is a Fairy type after all, and as we've established, that is automatically a good thing. Just like the Fairy type, Steel is another amazing type, obviously, and Copperajah and Berserker are both solid because of this. I gotta say though, Copperajah has popped off for me every time I've had it. It's a really solid mon that gets held back if you catch it as a Q-Fan. Lastly, Scyther is fantastic. I've used it as a Scyther and a Scizor, and it's amazing regardless. Just don't evolve it into Cleavor because oh my god, this thing is laughably bad. Bro doesn't even get Rock Slide, what the fuck? Desert Underpass only opens up if you revive a fossil, so if you choose not to delay Rustboro for a fossil, you sadly don't get access to this route. It's home to some solid encounters though, including Drapion, which as we've established is fantastic. Most of the mons in here we've been over in previous videos, except Druddigon, who is absolutely terrible. Like it's so bad that Dexa felt comfortable enough giving it access to Hone Claws. Lastly, Route 114 has some really good encounter options. I would recommend going for Grass, but I don't think Fishing's that bad. Ribombi's a great fast Fairy type that holds up for a while. Vespiquen is okay. It's bulky with access to Protect and Healing, but other than that, it's kind of underwhelming. Ledian is in theory kind of cool with access to Encore, but it's so frail that it can't really take advantage of it all that well. That combined with the 50% chance for the AI to switch if you Encore an immunity just makes it inconsistent at best. Huge shout out to Peachow's Ledian in this PB though, that guy went kind of crazy. Corviknight is one of the big wins here. That Pokemon is incredible and has a ton of utility. Most of the encounters here we've gone over in previous videos, but most of the time you get a fighting resist, which is always useful. Expert Nancy is the big problem on this route. And would you look at that, another Doug trio. The big issue with this fight is this Bronzong. You really want this thing to click Trick, since Iron Ball is one of the most consistently useful items in the game. Most of the AI's decision making revolves around speed, and being able to manipulate your Pokemon to be slower is an incredibly useful tool to have at your disposal. Unfortunately, this guy is not guaranteed to click Trick, and it also has Explosion. It's pretty uncommon, but sometimes you just get unlucky and lose out on the Iron Ball, which really sucks. This fight is designed to trap you, since Eldegoss has Cotton Down plus Eject Button to ruin your bait order. Once again, this fight involves finding the safest way to grab the Iron Ball while also baiting Dugtrio out on either a flying type or a mon holding your new shiny Shed Shell. Senior and Junior Tyra and Ivy are a tricky double battle with these two Unnerve mons. The gimmick here is Prankster, Swagger, and Unnerve to prevent Person Berries from working. Generally, you can pre-damage a Protect mon on one side that's always dead to the Prankster guys while clearing the threats with a mon like Excadrill or Conkeldurr. Everything from this point forward through Meteor Falls towards Route 115 is a gauntlet where you have to use the same 6 Pokemon. This gauntlet is honestly pretty tough, but there are a few key threats that you need to worry about. Generally, you want to plan stuff like this backwards, but there are some key archetypes of Pokemon that do really well here. Having a normal resist is pretty important, and more often than not, this normal resist can double as a counter to the Muck. Hector's Durant is pretty threatening, so having a fast fire type like Talonflame, Infernape, or Salazzle is generally great here. Stuff like Drapion or Skuntank does pretty well at handling the Poltegeist, Mr. Rime, and Cofagrigus. Pokemon like Vivillon, Masquerain, Talonflame, Staraptor, and other fast flying types are great for all of these fighting types. Finally, this Gliscor is kind of an outlier in the sense that most of the common Pokemon you'd want to bring don't really handle it. More often than not, I have to bring something specific to counter this guy, so planning the other 5 to deal with the rest of the gauntlet is usually a good idea. It's also worth noting that Meteor Falls has a bunch of pretty cool encounters. You're pretty likely to get a bulky normal resist mon if you don't fish, but stuff like Ursaring, Donphan, and Mamoswine can be fantastic as well. Just a few more fights before you get access to the absolutely bonkers Ursaluna. Most times, I choose to fish since you get a guaranteed Magikarp, and as all Nuzlockers know, Gyarados is very useful. Alternatively, you could delay for any of these tables, but I really like the immediate value that Gyarados offers. Your reward for getting through the gauntlet is some citrus berries and a couple of encounters. Route 112 holds a nearly guaranteed fire type, as long as you don't get Weezing, of course. Arcanine is great, since you can trade it for Hisui Arcanine, aka Alaska, and Rustboro. Honestly though, let's see somebody use Cantonian Arcanine. I'm so curious how good that thing is. Pyroar is your standard fast, special attacking fire type, and Rapidash is also very average. Camerupt is really nice to get from this area since it's a really good check to Tabitha's Torkoal, and any subsequent Torkoal afterwards. Those pesky turtles can be really problematic without a good counter. Fiery Path is home to even more fire types, and unless you get Magmortar, you're probably pretty happy here. You either get Camerupt and have a good counter to the Torkoals, or you get Turtonator or Torkoal and have a good counter for Tabitha's Victory Bell. Alternatively, you could get Weezing, which as we mentioned before has great value later, if it doesn't explode. Magmortar is seriously so bad though, I'm very sorry if you get this guy. Mount Chimney offers a quick break from fire-type Pokemon for the most part, and a lot of these encounters are pretty cool. All 3 Lycanroc forms can do different things, but notably Lycanroc Midnight can be pretty good for Flannery. I actually swept her with this evil dog a few months back. It's pretty awesome. Hariyama and Conkeldurr are great fighting types, although Hariyama doesn't have Fake Out at this point, unfortunately. The holy grail of this patch of grass is definitely Jangmo-O. This guy is so cool. I haven't gotten the chance to use it a lot, but Como-O seems like a lot of fun. It's time for the first real evil team section of the game, and Team Magma is out for blood. Tabitha is, in my opinion, the biggest threat between her and Maxie, despite having one less Pokemon. This fight is in permanent sun due to her Torkoal lead, which has a Quick Claw, by the way. Easily the best answer to this thing is Vivillon with Powder. Most people that aren't super familiar with Run and Bun have probably never heard of this move in their life, but it's incredibly broken. Powder is a priority move that redirects any fire type hit to the Pokemon that uses it. For example, Torkoal always sees a KO with only Flamethrower, so it will always click it on Vivillon. Since Powder is +1 priority, you ignore Quick Claw and can consistently deal damage and ignore the incoming Flamethrowers. This works against any Mon that only sees KOs with Fire-type moves, and it's why Vivillon is so broken in Flannery's gym as well as here. Alternatively, you can use something like Sturdy Donphan with Knockoff or Hariyama to get rid of the Quick Claw, then KO. Or if you get Camerupt, he does a pretty good job barring Quick Claw Explosion. A cool strat that you can use to make this fight go very smoothly is holding an Iron Ball on Vivillon to bait in a fast KO from Armaldo with Stone Edge. That way, you can get something like Excadrill in for the KO for free and don't have to worry about Stealth Rocks. Generally, you want to KO Espeon with something that has Sucker Punch if possible, but this thing does an absurd amount of damage. I've also seen people PP stall the Armaldo with Torterra and Talonflame or something, then set up Tailwind and Sweep, but I've never done it myself. Victory Bell usually gets thwarted by Turtonator or Torkoal, but if you don't have either of them, I've used Empoleon for speed control into another Mon that's faster. Finally, Mega Absol isn't actually a massive threat. Azumarill does really well into him, as well as Dreadnought and Hisui Arcanine. This fight can be really tough to do deathless sometimes, but it's such a good feeling if you find the perfect line. Maxie is usually easier than Tabitha from my experience. It really comes down to having an answer for Zarude and Como-O without letting hazards get up from the Crustle. It's also really important to route this fight correctly, so whichever Mon Wobbuffet comes in on is holding a Shed Shell. So this lead is Crustle with Red Card and Sturdy, so it's impossible to Oko this thing. They're going to knock off the Red Card. You're faster than me? What? Oh, it's 1 point faster. That doesn't matter, but... So now we're faster, and there's no more rocks. Fine. All right, so this is Zarude for Power Whip. And we go Drapion. It's really important I stay out of Flamethrower range from this Camerupt. I'm going to Leech Life. We have a Citrus. Okay, we should always be out of range. We Leech Life. Always keeps us out of Flamethrower range. All right, this should be Camerupt. All right, normal Camerupt without Sheer Force. This cannot Flamethrower me. It's always Earth Power. We go Talonflame. This is Earth Power. Perfect. Now this is always Rock Slide. And we go Caracosta. It can never sub. Perfect. And we're always pre-damaged to... we're pre-damaged to always die, rather, to Como-O. and we're always faster than this guy, we kill with liquidation. So this should always be Komodo body press. It can never go Aerodactyl. Stone Edge never kills me. It's always Komodo body press. And then we just go Talonflame. If it burns me on this body press, that's great. If not, it's not a huge deal. Burn would be really nice, though. I'm going to be honest. It definitely is easier than Tabitha. It usually is. Okay. We Acro. Chunks it. Below half. Okay. There's the Flame Body. That is pretty good. Clawitzer? My guy. Okay, wait. I have to be careful here. So I think if I kill this, I lose Clawitzer to the Wobbuffet, and I can't do that. I have to go into you and Roos. It should always be Dragon Tail or Poison Jab. Oh, wait, what? Why? Okay. All right, this is, once again, Stone Edge or Aqua Tail. I can never do a Wing Beat or anything. I'll be at 100 after this, I believe. All right, ideally the Stone Edges. If it Aqua Tail crits me, that's pretty bad. Okay. I guess if the Stone Edge crits me, it can be bad too. No, it's fine. Okay, we win. Goodbye. And now this is Wobbuffet. GG. We're not going to risk knockoffing this or anything. Let's go, baby. After Maxi, the level cap jumps to 57, and after this moderately challenging double battle in Jagged Pass, you get access to another encounter. Gible is the big prize here, but Ursaring is also amazing since you're so close to being able to buy honey in Lavaridge. Weirdeer and Drudagon are unfortunately garbage, and you're decently likely to encounter one of them. Also, the 3 trainers after the double battle are part of a gauntlet where you can only bring the same 6 mons, but this one really isn't that much trouble. Finally, Lavaridge, home of Gym Leader Flannery and this egg that guarantees you a hoeing starter at random. It's crucial that you check your calcs before leveling this starter up, since bringing an underleveled or unevolved Pokemon with Protect can be really useful against the double battle Gym Leader where you aren't able to pre-damage. Flannery's gym trainers can be pretty tough, but with proper knowledge of the run and bun switch AI and patient calculations, it can be smooth sailing. As if there weren't enough gauntlets in this split, Flannery's gym has another one with these 3 trainers. This gauntlet is actually a big reason why I like taking Gyarados and Meteor Falls, since it's really useful for these guys in particular. Also, be careful of this Darmanitan, it's such a monster. Flannery is in my opinion the easiest gym leader in the game actually, but it can be pretty box dependent. You generally either have the guys for it and it's completely free, or you have to get kind of creative. Pokemon like Hisui Arcanine, Tyrantrum, Lycanroc Midnight, or a fast rock type like Aerodactyl or Archeops can be your sweepers for this fight. As with most double battles, you really want to do damage with one side and pivot on the other. Caracosta and Amistar are amazing for this, since most of these mons have Solar Beam. Like I mentioned earlier, bringing an underleveled Combuskin, for example, can be really beneficial for baiting exactly what you want on turn 1. Keep in mind that the AI calcs damage before Mega Evolving and before the sun is up. Being able to pivot between mons that ×4 resist fire and mons that resist Solar Beam while your rock type sweeps is how 90% of successful Flannery fights go. Alright, so our Sceptile is exactly at 56. Detect and Rock Slide. There should be Sludge Bomb and Random between Charizards, 2 moves. Perfect, thank you for the follow. Perfect, okay. So Charizard dies, Salazzle should be at 1. What's up, Arc? Okay, that crit doesn't matter. That's a Sash. This should always bait Entei for Sacred Fire. Entei Sacred Fire. This can Heat Wave now, but it's fine. Hopefully it Sludge Bombs. We go Caracosta, and we Rock Slide. Salazzle dies. What's up, Browdy? Nice, let's go, baby. What's good, dude? Okay. Beautiful. I kind of want this to proc my berry. Nice, good. All right, no berry. Don't have to worry about Poltergeist shenanigans. Salazzle dies. Entei gets put at about 2/3, barring crit. Wow, that's a lot. Oh, I guess I didn't calc with... it's still fine. As long as I don't kill it, I think I'm chilling. This should be Marowak, because it's the only thing that sees a kill on my Arcanine, but it will never target my Arcanine because it sees a fast kill on Caracosta. Beautiful, okay. Hopefully I don't crit Entei. If I do, I think it's okay. But what's more important here is doing at least half to Marowak. Nice, let's go. That looks good. Beautiful. Okay, so this is always Solar Beam into Caracosta. I don't even think Marowak's gonna get a chance to Bone Rush. Or Boomerang. Assuming this kills. It's potentially a range. Oh wait, spread AI. Yeah. So that always kills. Because of the spread bug. Alright, right, so this is Incineroar and Talonflame, and we just click Detect with Sceptile. All right, so they both see a kill. Your Rock Slide. That's so weird. It saw a kill. Oh, I guess it's slower, right? Yeah. Okay. So I just go Gigalith and win, right? Oh, I'm fine. Never mind. Oh, wait. No, I should be fine. I can also flinch. Proudy. Flinch? Alright, let's chill. Alright, GG. GG. Thank you, Jason. Thank you. Too easy, baby. Let's go. Even with minus attack Hamilton, we get it done. See ya, Kicker. Have a good one, bro. Even with minus attack Hamilton, we get it done. Flannery Split is a long one, but I hope this video can help you get through it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps grow the channel, and I really want to keep this series going. Till next time.